Hello and welcome to episode 6 of The Week That Was, a weekly program on which we review the headlines of the week. To discuss the stories of the week from Monday the 20th, I have with me a reputed journalist and group editor of Herald Group of Publications, Mr. Sujay Gupta. Mr. Gupta, welcome to the show. As we do every week, this time we choose the stories and the headlines from Herald, the Voice of Goa. On December 22nd, we have a headline, and rather surprising one, that the Chief Minister Pramod Sawant wants to rebuild the temples that were destroyed during the Portuguese rule centuries ago. And 2 days later, you have a rejoinder from Mr. Sudhin Davlikar of the MGP that the temples that were destroyed during the Portuguese regime were rebuilt during the Portuguese regime itself. What are your comments on this?
Well, I think it's an unnecessary controversy, but though there was an intent behind this, behind fueling this controversy, because if you notice that the statement of the chief minister was made during his visit to the Mangeshi temple
Mangeshi
in
temple.
Ponda.
Yes.
Yes, it was done there uh, to uh, to uh, to mark the 60th year of Goa's liberation from the Portuguese rule and the Portuguese regime. So the context was that he was in a temple, and in by speaking to a audience there, he felt it would be right and just for him to essentially speak about rebuilding of temples that were kind of destroyed during the Portuguese regime. The idea is that there are two issues here. One is he was factually the element of factual correctness was not 100%,
Yeah.
and secondly, the motive for raising this at this particular point of time is also suspicious in the sense that it is political. It is suspicious because the motive is not very altruistic. It's not just about rebuilding temples and restoring faiths, as
Yes.
it were.
Yes.
So that's my initial comment. If you want me to delve deeper, I would say yes. The thing is, uh, when you make a comment like that, you're obviously catering to one section of the majority section of the population, which, in the view of the chief minister, would still value the rebuilding of temples as a very important issue to grapple with, notwithstanding all that Goa needs to tackle at this point of time, whether
Yeah.
it is corruption, destruction of the environment, loss of identity, loss of land, and so on and so forth, among many other issues. So, firstly, my first doubt, my first question that I would like to ask, or Goa should ask, is was this necessary at this point of time? Secondly, was this the most important uh, issue or a critical issue to be raised when Goa has clearly kind of moved on, and the generation of Goans who need to look ahead and have other aspirations. So this isn't quite an aspiration. So when it is not an aspiration, then injecting this particular issue into the political ecosystem uh, obviously means that the idea is to kind of raise this and probably kind of uh, get sympathy from a particular section of the population. That is what the government or the chief minister seems to think, or the party seems to think. Secondly, is the factual issue. When you say that temples need to be rebuilt and they were destroyed, Sudhin Davlikar came back, and Sudhin Davlikar was very clear where his political and ideological leanings lie.
Yes.
And for an MPP leader to say that no, these were temples that were destroyed, but he also gave examples of many temples that were rebuilt
They
during
were
the
rebuilt.
Portuguese era itself,
Yeah.
long era, 500-year-old era. But he all and ironically or interestingly, he also speaks about the temple in which he himself resides,
Yeah.
because Sri Dalekar himself resides, his residence is inside a temple complex. So he gave a series of names of a lot of temples uh, that were rebuilt there.
Yeah. On December 23rd, we have a headline in the Herald that the Election Commission of India goes hard on candidates with criminal background. Now, the onus is on the political parties to give the reasons why they have chosen candidates with criminal antecedents and why they could not find clean candidates. This is a good move from the point of view of the people.
Yes, it is a good move, provided that this does not only become a hope or an expectation from the election commission. There needs to be legislation or a notification where the election commission says that if the justification is not good enough in the eyes of the election commission or any expert committee that they form to judge this, and if the explanation is not justified, then those candidates will not be allowed to contest, or their forms will be rejected. I think the election commission should have taken it to the next step and said that if parties cannot justify why tickets had to be given to people with criminal backgrounds, or give reason enough to say that look, he has been acquitted by a court of law, or there is enough proof to show that the case against him was of that of political vindictiveness. Let the election commission have a mechanism to decide whether the explanation given by the parties for selecting people of criminal backgrounds as candidates is valid or not valid. And if it is not valid, then the election commission should have teeth to debar those candidates from contesting elections. If that happens, then I would say that it is indeed very good. If that does not happen, then it becomes mere lip service.
Certainly, certainly. On Monday, the December 27th, Herald has the headline, which is not specifically related to Goa, but it's an issue of concern, where after Karnataka, right-wing groups disrupt Christmas celebrations in Assam. And this is also the third incident in terms of states. That is, there is also an incident in Haryana, for example, in Ambala, where the statue of Jesus Christ was vandalized. Now, all this happens in states which are ruled by the BJP, and the charge of the Congress recently has been that all these miscreants who are responsible for this kind of activities are supported by the powers that be in the BJP ruled states.
See, Dr. Fedi, I look at it. I agree completely with you. And of course, we are aware and we have reported this. The issue is larger than that. See, what happens is that whoever is in power in the center, irrespective of the color and ideology of the ruling dispensation, they are servants of the constitution. And at the end of the day, anybody who's in power, ultimately for them, the constitution is the guiding document which enables and which should be the tool in the hands of any ruling party to function.
Yeah.
It is very clear that we are a sovereign, socialistic, secular, democratic republic.
Yes.
It is there. Our preamble says so. A constitution says so. The constitution also provides for the presence of religious minorities to practice, propagate any religion of their choice.
Yes, indeed.
Point number three. We have always been an extremely harmonious society across all states and across all regions of this country.
Yes.
The issue is that any action which violates each of the 3 points that are mentioned is violative of the basic constitution and has to be treated as such.
Yeah.
It has to be as clear as that. We can mix a lot of issues. We can say there is a political backing to it, but the point is, what one should see is whether the state, not the party, whether the state is taking any action against anybody who gets into either a religious institution or an education institution and tells people not to tell children of a particular faith not to celebrate Christmas, or it goes to Assam and tells people of a particular faith not to celebrate Christmas. I'm not even getting into what Christmas means to the entire country. That is a given. That is stating the obvious.
Yeah.
For me or anybody else to say that Christmas is a all-encompassing festival to all, even to say that is hurtful because that is given. That should be there in everybody's veins. But so that is given. We don't need to teach anybody. What is important is what the state does. A, the state failed to cause or create enough deterrence to these kind of miscreants who went and did what they did,
Yes.
leading to the beliefs that the ruling party not only or the government which is ruled by BJP did uh, not only serve as a deterrent, but they did not even clamp down and punish these people for
Yeah.
obviously violating the law.
Yes.
And the issue is that this silence, absolute silence, makes it evident that there is complicity. And if there is a complicity of a political party, that is that is still understood, not accepted but understood. But if there's a complicity of the state is complicit, that is absolutely unpardonable.
Yes. On December 25th, that is Saturday, we have this story in the Herald, which is a Herald on the ground report, where Google Maps show that there is a black patch off Baina Beach, and we discover that this is sewage which is being channelized into the Arabian Sea.
Yes, and I think I will take this opportunity to commend the reporter Naveen Jha who investigated the story, and a
Yes.
three-part excellent story.
Yeah.
Was one of the finest examples of good ground level journalism. Uh, commiserations, no, not commendations to Naveen Jha for that.
Yeah.
But what is important is that uh, let us look at the story itself. Uh, the story essentially spoke about how raw, untreated sewage from the Baina area was getting dumped into the Arabian Sea. We tracked Google Maps and showed how there was a huge patch of black on the sea water. Now, during the course of the investigations, we realized across three parts that this happened because of a very interesting and important reason. The sewage capacity in Vasco is absolutely huge and is going beyond the capacity of was going beyond the capacity of the current sewage earlier sewage treatment plant to handle it. So it was, and the whole sewage network in the Vasco area is about 25 years old. So a new sewage treatment plant of about 20 million liters per day was needed.
Yeah.
That particular plant was commissioned. After getting commissioned, what is interesting here is, and I will just go through the piece once again. Now, it was commissioned in 2017. From 2017 onwards, the particular sewage treatment plant, the new sewage treatment plant, was not connected to pumping station 6 of Vasco. Now, if you don't connect a pumping station into the sewage treatment plant, how will the sewage come in and how will
Yeah.
the sewage get generated?
Yes.
So obviously the plant wasn't functioning in its effectively because it was not getting enough quantum of sewage to treat. They took a temporary shutdown. The Sewage Corporation of India took a shutdown to obviously fix this. But when they took this shutdown, they realized that there was so much of untreated sewage that was there. They did not make any provisions to handle it, and all started going in a raw fashion into the sea. Added to that is also sewage coming in from the hilly Gandhinagar area, where that is a second issue. That also the excess of sewage from there is getting dumped without any treatment into the Arabian Sea. So it's a
Yeah.
double disaster whammy, so to speak. The idea is twofold. One is that you have the sewage corporation, you have the local authorities. They did not even plan and envisage. They took a sudden call, and the matter went out of hand. So it just boils down to lack of thinking, lack of organizing capacity, and uh, and essentially people are paid to do their jobs. And this is just basic civic organization that needs to be done, which I would say the sewage corporation, all the other local authorities have completely failed to do. It's a gigantic mess. But then if people suffer, if the sea gets polluted, the marine life gets affected, who's accountable? So I would say this is nothing short of a very criminal negligence and should be treated as such. if it is passed on like this as something that, in this whole so-called, as they say in Hindi, sab chalta hai kind of a attitude,
Yes.
then this won't. So it is important to figure out what happens post this, and we don't know about others, but Herald will keep a watch on this and see that it just doesn't report, but ensures that people who have let the state down and caused potential harm to the people should be made accountable.
They should be accountable. On December 28th, we have a shocker of a news that the central government, especially the Ministry of Home Affairs, does not renew the FCRA license of Saint Mother Teresa's Missionaries of Charity. Now, this letter comes on Christmas Day itself. And as Mamata Banerjee has pointed out, Mother Teresa sisters, they cater to about 22,000 patients and also employees. Now, although the center has denied, effectively, non-renewal of the FCRA license amounts to freezing of their accounts so that they cannot function at all.
Yes, see, there are again two ways of looking at it. There is a obvious emotional hurt which has been caused, and that is very well documented. Correct? You understand that. But what is more important here is not just the emotional hurt. Let's just break this down into a factual narrative and figure out and state why exactly this is not just hurtful, but it is wrong in every other aspect. I'll explain why. The missionaries of charity are not a new NGO. They've been
Yes.
there for ages. It has been established by a saint who our own country has honored.
Yes.
She's not only been honored, she's been honored by the government and the country with the highest honor that the government could give. Bharat Ratna is not a mean honor. It's the highest honor that can be given to anybody in this country.
Yes.
So you have established the credibility of the founder of that organization and what the organization stands. Number one.
Yeah.
Moving on. The FCRA permissions have been given to this organization for a very long time. They've been carrying out their activity. The activity is very well documented, not only and recognized not only by the state, but all credible international organizations as well. The fact that the Mother Teresa, the Missionaries of Charity, caters to the destitute and the homeless across all faiths, and the work that they do at the hospitals that they run is an established fact. Renewal of the FCRA license is a matter of routine because it
Yes.
enables you to get the finances both from abroad, from list of credible donors to carry out your work.
Yes.
The Ministry of Home Affairs is well within its rights to say that we have a right to review. But my point is, when you say you need to review the working of an organization whose credentials are beyond doubt and which is been on record, recognized by the government itself, if there were any issues at all, I'm not saying that the government should, completely bypass the whole process and say that we will renew the FCRA license without any application of mine. I'm not saying that. But if your application of mine results in having some kind of a doubt about the transactions or about the usage of the funds that the Missionaries of Charity is getting in, then there's a way to do it. Given the nature of the relationship, given the credibility of the organization, you don't give a letter on the 25th refusing to renew the FCRA license, which is expiring on the 31st, 6 days later.
Yes. Yes.
What you do is you deem the renewal for a longer period, for say another 6 months. And during this 6 months, if there are any doubts, you clarify those doubts. If the intention is to see that the Missionary of Charity works, then you will allow it to function, and at the same time do a parallel inquiry to see whether your doubts are assuaged or not. But you don't say on the 25th that 6 days later you cannot function, because this is not a hotel or an Airbnb that you are checking in and then you check out without any problem, because the fallout effect and the impact that it has on countless lives including people who are under critical care, who are getting treated.
Yeah.
It's huge. So you need to think this out before you do these kind of things. When you don't do it, then the intention seems to be more to harass than to really look at the financial transactions of an institution of repute.
But is it not exigent for them to disclose the reasons why they have objections not to renew the license?
Obviously, you cannot just say that there were adverse inputs. When you say there were adverse inputs, you need to at least not in public, but to discuss what these so-called adverse inputs are and from where these inputs have come, and give an opportunity for to the machine of charity to respond to it. There is something called a system of justice and fair play.
Yes.
You have to get the opportunity to respond. So it cannot be a one-sided thing, because so it is too arbitrary and too uncalled for, and the manner in which this is done raises doubts whether the real intent was to uh, check on the sources and the spending of the funds, or was it basically to harass a minority institution? This needs to be looked at, but the manner in which it has done does not give any confidence to any organization that is working for the benefit of the people, irrespective of faiths, because the Missionary of Charity is not a Christian organization. It is not a Catholic organization. It is an organization for everybody. It's a humanitarian organization.
Certainly.
So,
Certainly.
so I think that needs to be kept in mind, and it is obvious what is happening.
Certainly. On Wednesday, December 29th, that is the day we are shooting this, we have a headline in the Herald where the government has avoided clamping down on the festivities. Now, this is a tough decision because the government has to balance out an economy which is just recovering from the COVID pandemic, and the
Yes.
need also to ensure the safety of the people. How would you look at this situation?
Dr. Freddy, it's a double-edged sword. There is no right or wrong here. But the point here is ultimately, yes, the government of the day can be blamed. But I would say in this particular case, the responsibility lies as much with the people as with the government.
Certainly.
So when hotels and restaurants and others very rightly say that they have been badly affected, and economically, if you shut them down across the Christmas and the New Year season, then it is like a almost like a killer blow, a blow in the solar
Yeah.
plexus of the ecosystem or the economic system. We understand that, but to enable the government to freely allow you to function, I think all these establishments, hotels, restaurants, nightclubs should take also the responsibility to see that all COVID protocols are maintained in a proper way. We saw what happened in the last 2 days when the Sunburn was shifted to a private venue.
Yeah.
The Sunburn Festival is supposedly one of the biggest EDM festivals in the country. There are so many people coming in. It was advertised heavily. Proper DJs were there. For them to conduct it, and we saw visuals of people crowd, a very crowded arena, dancing away maskless, makes these kind of events super spreaders.
Yeah.
Now, when you do this, one super spreader event can actually create a huge havoc everywhere else.
Yes.
So, the idea is that the state has been, I would say, magnanimous and practical to a certain extent, but at the same time, you must keep a watch, because this particular action should not result in going back to the situation that Goa was in about 1 year ago.
Yeah.
People are still mourning the loss of their loved ones. People are still mourning or lamenting the lack of oxygen in hospitals. People are still in the situation of grieving. One has
Yeah.
lost lots of friends, relatives, loved ones, colleagues.
Yes.
So my issue is that one should be very clear that yes, let the economy get back on track to carry out your festivities, but really clamp down on the number of people. Make sure the COVID protocols are followed, and the government should be absolutely ruthless in following. If people cannot be responsible, then unfortunately, hard decisions have to be taken. If they can be responsible, then we can keep the economy going for much longer, and allowing everybody to get out.
So from the side of Herald TV, we send out an appeal to the people to act cautiously, to observe all the SOPs. I'm afraid that we have completely run out of time. We thank you for joining us during this week, and we thank our guest, the group editor of Herald Publication, Mr. Sujay Gupta. Thank you very much for all your insights and analysis. Thank you. We
Thank you.
hope that you join us again next week. Thank you.